I'm honored to be joined by Colorado Attorney General Phil Weiser, and joining us remotely is U.S. Senator Michael Bennett. As they make their way to the stage, I couldn't think of a better person to help lead and moderate this very important conversation than CMU's President John Marshall. So please help me welcome our esteemed panelists to the floor.
Thank you, Curtis. Good morning, everybody. A special thank you to the team at GJEP and the CMU team that have worked really hard to make this possible. You'll notice a little bit of ITAV, and we're all going to hope that the hamster wheel at DARPA keeps turning and that the internet works this morning as we welcome both Attorney General Weiser and Senator Michael Bennett, who's going to be joining us remotely. The rules of the debate, we're going to give each candidate 90 seconds to alternatingly answer the question, and the alternating candidate will have a 30-second rebuttal to each of these opportunities. We'll try and stick to time, and our friend up front has a small whiteboard that will keep us on track. We're going to start with a couple of introductions, so if I might, we'll just get started. Attorney General Phil Weiser, welcome. We're glad to have you.
It's great to be back here.
Phil is no stranger to Western Colorado. He's currently serving his second term as the 39th Attorney General of Colorado. Before being elected Attorney General, Phil served as the Dean of the University of Colorado Law School, served as a law clerk to Supreme Court Justices Byron Whizzer White and Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Weiser has held senior positions in the United States Department of Justice under both the Clinton and Obama administrations, and he makes his home in Denver with his wife, Dr. Heidi Wald, and has 2 children. Please help me welcome Attorney General Phil Weiser. Senator Michael Bennett, also no stranger to Western Colorado. Colorado Senior Senator Michael Bennett's represented Colorado in the U.S. Senate since 2009. Prior to becoming a U.S. Senator, Bennett served as the Superintendent of Schools for DPS. Bennett worked in the private sector as a managing director in the Anschutz Investment Company and also has experience working in the United States Department of Justice under the Clinton administration. Bennett and his wife, Susan Daggett, are the parents of 3 daughters. Please join me in welcoming Senator Michael Bennett.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay, we're going to get right to the openings. So each candidate we did a pre-established kind of coin flip here, and each candidate is going to be given a 2-minute opening. Attorney General Weiser, you'll be provided the first opportunity, followed by Senator Bennett. Attorney General Weiser.
Thank you, John, and thank you, CMU, for hosting this important forum and the Grand Junction Economic Partnership. This is a timely conversation for Colorado. Our population in 2025 grew by the lowest it's grown in Colorado since 1990. In 2026, there's a reasonable chance that Colorado's population will decline. That happened in 1986 at a time that our economy was similarly in a little bit of a rut. And the question for Colorado right now is, how do we come together to build a robust economy so that the students here at CMU, who I talked to just the other week, know that they can build and grow great businesses here, know they're going to have opportunities here, know they can afford to live here. These are critical challenges for our state. I've been working at the state level now for 7.5 years. I'm ready to take these on at day one. And this is not just something I've been doing serving in state government. I founded Startup Colorado to help build a robust startup community across our state. I've shown up, continue to listen to work with leaders like Chris Pearson and Agile Space Industries to understand what these challenges are. We must seize this moment. I believe in Colorado. I believe in the culture here. I know how we can bring people together. I've joined Delete and others at the incubator here. We've got a lot of work to do. I'm ready to get going. Let's get to work.
Thank you, A.G. Weiser. Senator Bennett, your opening.
Thanks, John. Thank you can you hear me, by the way?
We can hear you great.
That's awesome, AV, and I appreciate your you're making this possible. We were voting till 3:30 in the morning last night, and I just could not get back. But thank you so much for having me. I just want to say that when I moved to Colorado with Susan, I went to work for Phil Anschutz, doing distressed investing for him. The first deal I did for him was Force Energy, an oil and gas company. The last deal, Regal Cinemas, United Artists, and Edwards Theaters. We built the biggest motion picture exhibitor in the world. And from that, I went to Denver to work with John Hickenlooper at a time when our budget was in real trouble and our economic development was even worse trouble. I led a reform of the Denver public schools that was where business was deeply involved in the outcomes for our kids, as was other parts of our community. And as senator, I've worked with our aerospace industry, our defense industry, our space and energy industry. Colorado has more than lost a step. We are hemorrhaging businesses in our state. Everywhere I go, people tell me that they're worried that our best days are behind us. We lost 25% of the restaurants in Denver and Boulder because of carelessness about the approach to changes in public policy. And we're seeing it all across Colorado on the Front Range and in the Western Slope. We need a governor who understands that there is nothing that we can do together without a growing economy, without being a place that attracts businesses where people feel like they can start a business, they can grow a business. They've got somebody fighting to reduce red tape, not add red tape. We're in a competition all across the nation right now for business. And I know Colorado has the strongest building blocks of any state. I have no doubt that our best days are ahead of us.
Thank you, Senator, for that opening. We're going to move into questions now. So again, I would just remind you, if you haven't found the QR code on your table, and start queuing up those questions for our candidates. To get us started, we're going to begin Attorney General Weiser with you, and then we'll just alternate Senator Bennett each time. The lead questioner, question answerer, is that a word?
Easy for you to say.
We'll have 90 seconds, and the alternating candidate will have a 30-second rebuttal. First question. In 2014, this community grappled with watching tremendous job creation in the Denver metro area while rural communities did not share in the same levels of economic development growth. In response, we worked with urban and rural legislators to create the Rural Jumpstart Tax Incentive Program, which has yielded tremendous results for Mesa County. If elected governor, what's your next big idea that will truly target economic development for parts of Colorado not on the I-25 corridor? AG Weiser.
So my commitment, and it's a track record I have, is to make sure that we leverage the strengths that we have in the Front Range for all of Colorado. And I want to tell you, when I am in the Front Range, people care about the success of the Western Slope. People care about the success of the San Luis Valley. This is a state, I know that there are divides, but there's also great connection and commitment. When it comes to access to capital, access to mentoring, the ability to build businesses anywhere is now a reality. The commitment that I can give you and that I've walked this walk is how we make sure that we are taking those resources and spreading across the whole state. We have seen real growth here, but I think there's still huge opportunity, not just here in Grand Junction, but up and down the Western Slope, in Southern Colorado as well. How do we make sure that whatever the pain points are, whatever the needs are, we're in touch, we're supporting, we're working together with you. And this is something I will draw on my relationships here, my ability to work together, my ability to go tackle challenges. When this community was facing a challenge with Rocky Mountain Health Plans, which had sold to United Health, and the question was, what happens for this litigation that was successful? I got on the case with United Health. We brought back $25 million to the foundation. Whatever it's going to take to help businesses be successful, I'm going to be on the case.
Senator Bennett.
I alluded it to my opening statement, John. We have to cut red tape in our state. We've made it too hard to run a business. We've made it too hard to own a business and grow a business. And it's everything from the smallest businesses that we have to the largest businesses that we have. And I don't know why we've gotten to a place where we think we can legislate answers to every single thing. We've got to have a thriving private sector again in Colorado, and we need people to know that the state is a place where people want to come, and that the Western Slope is a critically important part of Colorado. Phil just mentioned Agile, which is down in Durango. I was down there last week, and they were telling me that they are now spending about $20 million in CapEx in Tulsa, Oklahoma, because nobody in Colorado was prepared to compete with Tulsa when they came in to take that rocket factory. Those are high-paying jobs on the Western Slope. We can't afford to lose a single one of them, and we're behaving as though we can. So again, I think we have the strongest building blocks: space, aerospace, energy, agriculture, and technology. I don't think there's anybody in the country that can compete with us if we set our mind to it, if we figure out how to provide much more efficient access to capital for our businesses, and we're not strangling them in red tape.
On the trail, you both speak a lot about education. In 8 years, Governor Polis has prioritized free preschool and protecting K-12 funding. In this community, we're keenly aware of the connection between educational attainment and economic development outcomes. If elected governor, what is your plan to help communities like ours beef up educational attainment rates with an eye towards stimulating sustainable economic development? Senator Bennett.
Well, as you know, I was the superintendent in Denver, so I have a perspective on this from that experience. We're working with our business community, our civil rights community, our religious community, we were able to drive student achievement greater in that school district than in any school district in the state of Colorado, with a population that was one of the highest poverty populations in Colorado, which is a very important demonstration that kids should have the opportunity to be able to succeed no matter where they grow up. We need to do a much better job as a state. We are not preparing our kids for the economy they're inheriting. And when I see examples across our state, as I have in Canyon City, as I have in the Aurora Community College, of people that are preparing kids for the skills that they need to be able to earn a living wage, not just a minimum wage, that is what we need in Mesa County. That is what we need all over the state. The only way we're going to get there is with the business community and others insisting that that is the standard that we're going to have all across Colorado, whether we're urban or rural. That's what we want to know, and that's what parents and kids want to know. And at the same time, we have to support our K-12 education system. We know that in Mesa County, all across this state. We're not paying our teachers what they deserve, and we have to fix that problem in Colorado.
Thank you, Senator. A.G. Weiser, your rebuttal.
Let me start with what I've learned here in Grand Junction at D51, which is how many kids are distracted and struggling with their mental health. They're graduating high school or here from CMU, and they're not in a good position to be in the workforce. Their resilience skills are not in good shape. The steps you've made here in Mesa County addressing more social, less media is something I took to the state level to make sure we have a law that requires every school district to do what you did here in Grand Junction to make sure that smartphones are not going to interfere with learning and to make sure young people are growing up with a sense of connection. I want to build on that with a mentorship program so every young person has multiple mentors, has access to career and technical education, and that we are keeping our best teachers so that students grow up with real educational opportunity and the right skills they need to be successful.
Thank you, A.G. Weiser. We're going to turn to energy, and this question will be first to you, A.G. Weiser. What is your approach to oil and gas development, specifically in Colorado? How will you balance economic and energy benefit with the environmental regulations? And a related question for both of you is, do you see opportunities to renew efforts to get Colorado, some of the cleanest natural gas in the world, into world markets?
It's a multi-part question. So let me say, touch all of them. We are in a changing environment around energy, and it's very important that our state be a leader on how we do that. One of the great achievements that we worked on in Colorado is how to make sure that methane emissions are capped and we're not having flaring in oil and gas development. That was a model of collaborative problem solving under Governor Hickenlooper to help us set what became a national standard. And I've been now working on the national stage trying to keep that standard as a national standard. Because if we have effective methane oversight, but Wyoming doesn't, we're still getting air from Wyoming that is harmful to our health. So we need to make sure we have a natural gas and a oil development process that is as clean as possible. And we are making sure that we're phasing out coal, despite the efforts of this administration to try to dictate to Colorado what type of energy we should have. It's crucial as we do that we're committed to a just transition, looking for other opportunities like geothermal, which can leverage a lot of the talent we have here. This is a crucial time to making sure that we're doing two things, both of which are critical. We need affordable energy, and we need to make sure that we're being as responsible stewards as we can. I believe those two goals and building a resilient, reliable energy sector is something we can do in Colorado, and I've got the plans and the experience to make sure we do that.
Senator Bennett.
John, I think this is one where I would never bet against America. I would never bet against Colorado. We have abundant fossil fuels. We have abundant renewables. We have the world's leading innovation. We have a much less corrupt society than a lot of the countries that we're competing with. And we have the imagination of people all over our state. So not only do I think America can lead, I think Colorado can lead. What we have not done is done a good job of charting for our folks what the transition is going to look like from the fossil fuel economy that we're in today to the clean energy economy that we're committed to, because of our state is absolutely on the bleeding edge of climate change. We see it with the lack of water. We see it with the lack of, with the fire risk that we're facing. There's a huge need to address these challenges, but we have not done it in a way that's convincing to working people, that we're going to do it in a way that keeps energy prices low, that we're going to keep energy available and uninterrupted, and that we're going to move to the cleanest energy we can. My answer to you, by the way, is that natural gas needs to be a part of this. I'll answer that question directly. And it's one of the reasons we were able to keep Europe in the fight against Ukraine for as long as we have, because of exports of LNG from Colorado and from other places. And I'll build on that as governor.
Thank you, Senator. We are experiencing one of the most severe dry water years on record. If you drive I-70 right now, the river looks a lot like it usually does in August, and we're sitting here in April. At the same time, the 7 Colorado River Basin states are negotiating future operations on the Colorado River. And to state the obvious, there are more congressmen in California than in Colorado. With our water supplies being a critical driver for this region economically, how have you engaged on water, and how will you continue to find a path forward on the Colorado River? Senator Bennett, this question goes to you first.
Sure, I'm happy to take it. Thank you. Just within the last 10 days, I met with all the Western senators, Republicans and Democrats, with the Interior Department to talk about where we were in the negotiation. And I conveyed to them that I had just been in Gunnison County and met in Gunnison and in Crested Butte with 20 community members, some of whom have been measuring avalanches in Gunnison County for 35 years, and said they've never seen anything worse. I told my colleagues from these lower basin states that in Gunnison County, what people are saying is we may have to prepare for a snowless economy, that there is no water when Blue Mesa is half empty. And I think we saw some of the results from that meeting, where the federal government is now draining Flaming Gorge, but not coming to Colorado. And this is going to be a massive issue for the next governor. And I believe very strongly we need somebody who has deep relationships all across our state, who understands how to build coalitions in a very difficult political climate, not just to protect Colorado's water, which we need to do, not just to harden Colorado against the threats of fire, which we need to do, but to make sure that we have a state to turn over to the next generation.
Thank you, Senator. A.G. Weiser.
There's a bumper sticker I've seen out there that is apropos, which is Phil Weiser for governor, Michael Bennett for Senate. We have in Michael Bennett a senior senator ready to be chair of the Agriculture Committee at this crucial time. We in Colorado have to put our best foot forward. And that means senior leadership in Congress and seasoned leadership that knows the law, knows the Colorado River Compact. John's premise is absolutely right. If we were negotiating this compact from scratch with California and all the members of Congress, we wouldn't get a 50-50 split, which is what we have right now. And I know the lower basin has been overusing more than the 7.5 million acre feet that they're allowed. I am not afraid to stand up against anyone in court when we've got a good argument, and we do have good arguments against California and Arizona. Ultimately, I want us to get to a deal. It's going to involve innovative and collaborative use about water, but it's got to be a fair deal and not Colorado as the sucker being taken advantage of. So I'm not going to be afraid to fight for Colorado. We've got good arguments on our side. I know how we're going to have to come together. It's going to be crucial that we are an international leader on how we manage our water, and it is going to be one of the big issues that we'll have to deal with in the next administration.
Thank you, A.G. Weiser. Sticking with water for a moment, I want to provide you both an opportunity to talk about the economic impacts of Trans Mountain diversions, and specifically, as governor, will you support efforts to secure the Shoshone water right? A.G. Weiser, this question starts with you.
One of the important parts about my ability to go from being Attorney General to governor is how much I've worked on these issues so that I start with a knowledge of how we work with the legislature. I start with a track record of having worked on these issues. So let's talk about the water rights that are now being extended for Tri-State and Excel. And that was going to happen in the legislature last year. And the person who stood up to say, only extend those rights if the water rights stay on the western slope with no Trans Mountain diversions, that was me. Fighting for these communities, fighting for the western slope against the risk that those water rights could be moved. That's a commitment that I've brought to make sure we're protecting communities here, doing it the right way. I also believe it's critical that we protect the Shoshone system and to make sure that that water right is managed appropriately as the plan we have. And the fact that this administration is trying to pull the rug out from under us is wrong, and we'll keep at it to make sure that we are managing this crucial natural resource effectively. Colorado has a commitment to how we manage water. It's all of us need all of us. What Russ George has emphasized is there are two questions we have to keep asking. What do you need, and what are you able to give up? Because we're going to have to make changes, but there's a right way and a wrong way to do it. And the wrong way is to allow investors to make a quick buck and to hurt all of us. I've stood strong against those schemes. I'll continue to do that.
Thank you, Phil. Senator Bennett.
John, on the Shoshone, I've been there, since the very beginning, working with the Colorado River District and the water districts all over the western slope. And I think people in that room know the commitment that I've made to the western slope and to fighting for the $40 million of federal money. Hopefully, we're going to need as part of that. Let me also go back to something Phil said about putting our best foot forward. This is not a moment where we should be leaving somebody in the Senate because we think they're doing too good a job. This is a moment when Colorado needs the best leadership that we can have. I'm the only person running for governor in America that has private sector experience and has been a school superintendent and has served in our national legislature for the last 3 terms. And I am so worried about where Colorado is at this moment that I think it's critically important for us to have somebody who can bring that set of skills, who actually run very difficult enterprises, who has balanced very difficult budgets, who's worked in every single corner of our state rural and urban to build the coalitions we need to get ahead. We are not going to be able to sue our way to less expensive housing, to better childcare, to better education, to an economy that grows for everybody on the Western Slope in Colorado. And I just want you to know, I don't see this as a decision between me and Phil. I think this is an issue regarding the businesses and families of the state of Colorado and who we need to lead at this critically important moment.
Thank you, Senator. This is a question from the audience. Questions are starting to pour in here, so thank you for that. Most every young person in Colorado says it's too expensive to live here, even on the Western Slope and certainly on the Front Range. How do you plan to combat the high cost of rent and housing versus stagnating wages, specifically for younger workers in our workforce? Senator Bennett, I think this question goes to you first.
Well, let me start by saying, I think you know, John, that I've been doing meetings all over the state with young people that are 25 to 35. One was written up in the Grand Junction Sentinel. And if you haven't read it, I hope you'll read it, because that generation of Coloradans is really upset and really worried, and I would say angry, because they believe we are not making room for them in this state. They believe that my generation has benefited from real estate transaction that has been good for us, that's built wealth for us, but they're hanging on by their fingernails, not just housing, but housing, healthcare, childcare. No matter how hard they work, they cannot live a middle-class life. So that is the crux of my campaign, that you need a growing economy to be able to have any chance of building an economy where people can live a middle-class life. And then you got to address these costs so that we don't end up becoming Southern California or Northern California. With respect to housing itself, let me say, I believe our entire state, all 6 million people, should commit to the idea that the next generation and working people all over the state should never have to spend more than 30% of their income on housing. Because if you're spending 40% or 50% or 60%, as people are in Mesa County, there's no way to save for college. There's no way to pay for childcare. There's no way to start a small business. And that's an example of the depth of the challenges that are in front of us. I know Colorado can fix it. I believe in the imagination of the people across our state. We just have to unleash it.
Thank you, Senator. A.G. Weiser.
The housing challenges come in 3 categories. First, the Great Recession really broke our housing market, and we stopped building the types of starter homes like one that I bought. And we need that missing middle desperately. Permitting processes can take too long. Permitting fees can be the same whether you're building a starter home or building a mega mansion. I've worked across Colorado governments managing a settlement and a response to the opioid crisis that's a model in regional governance and problem solving. It was recognized as such by Johns Hopkins School of Public Health. And what we need to do is have that type of leadership, hands-on leadership, to change the dynamics in housing and to build those crucial missing middle starter homes we need. I want to lean into innovation with modular housing, which can be 20% cheaper, 30% quicker. Second, we do need oversight for those renting to make sure that corporate landlords or others are not abusing renters with junk fees and other trickery, something I've worked on as Attorney General. And third, for rural communities, they often have inverted housing markets where they have housing stock there, but it's dilapidated. I've worked on that as Attorney General, need to scale that up to make sure that all communities have the most robust, affordable housing stock that we can.
Colorado once was a purple state. Those days appear to be over for now. And as such, the Colorado legislature passes about 500 laws a year that businesses somehow have to keep track of and try to comply with. In the views of some in this room, this is not sustainable. What can we do to slow down this tidal wave, and what will you do specifically as governor to try and moderate some of the anti-business tendencies in this legislature? This first question, the first response goes to you, A.G. Weiser.
There's 2 muscles that we need to build, and as we build them, I think about a teaching from a friend of mine, which is regulation should be like garlic in cooking, which is only as much as you need and never too much. Here's what the two muscles are. First, when someone proposes an idea, sometimes from personal experience, we need to make sure that we're talking and we're listening to people who are affected by it. When I had a good visit here with Delita and folks at the incubator, someone said, I feel like sometimes they're making these regulations because they have this one bad apple in mind, and they're making life really hard for the rest of us. Why can't we just go after the bad apples? That's an important discipline that we need to bring up front. But secondly, because we have all these regulations and laws in the books, that first muscle is not enough. We need a second muscle that says, let's take a look back at regulations and laws and ask, what effect are they having? Are they overbroad? And should we narrow them and fix them? I've worked on issues, and every single law that we've pushed from my department has been bipartisan, has been committed to that dialogue. We can talk about the Colorado Privacy Act as a good example, where we exempted small businesses who had less than 100,000 records, and we set it up in a way that's principle-based, so people have to follow a principle. It's not overly prescriptive. By contrast, other laws run through at the last minute without that type of reflection, fail basic cost-benefit analysis. So I've been doing this work. I'm ready to take it on. It's crucial that our next governor is ready to hit the ground running on this.
Senator Bennett.
John, we're drowning in red tape, and it's not even close. And I think it's because there are a lot of folks in Colorado that have been trying to solve problems without actually asking people how to best solve those problems. And all over the state, I hear not just from businesses, from county commissioners and from mayors about whether there's anybody in Denver who ever thinks about the unintended consequences of the legislation that they pass. And I think that's a really fair question at this point, when we're losing businesses, when the restaurants are closing in Denver, when we haven't been able to fill the buildings back up in central Denver from COVID. And we've got to get to work on it because time is wasting. The next generation of Coloradans needs an economy starting today that is going to provide the jobs that they need for the next 10 years of their life. And they need us to be able to attack costs. And a lot of those costs are the consequence of overregulation and driving up prices. I'm not saying that things aren't well-intentioned, but they're not thought through. And I think that as we think about something like housing, which, by the way, is not going to be about Phil or me building Stalinist apartment blocks, across Colorado by the state government. It's about unleashing the private sector in Colorado. And that needs to be that they need to be able to make a profit on this kind of starter homes that Phil was talking about, on condominiums. And by the way, that's not just true in Denver. That's as true in Mesa County as it is in Denver. It's as true on the Western Slope as it is in the Front Range and the Eastern Plains. We can address these problems, but continuing to color in the side of the lines, continuing just to have rhetoric and not actually drive the kind of change that I drove in the private sector, that I drove when I was superintendent of schools, that is not going to get the job done.
A related question from the audience. What recent policy or bill or regulation would you specifically advocate either overturning or repealing because it's making growth, hiring, or investment harder in regions like Western Colorado? Senator, this question's to you to start.
I think that we did not do a good job implementing the paid family leave bill in the legislature in Colorado. That's one example. I think that we, at every level of our government, we have done a really terrible job of reducing the amount of time that it takes to be able to get a permit in this state, to be able to build something new in this state. And I think that if you had a governor who was committed not just to reducing the bureaucracy while instead of adding to it, but also working with the county commissioners and mayors all over Colorado, who I think are desperate to help try to solve these challenges as well, I think we could make real progress not in a very short period of time, but we could at least be saying to our kids and grandkids, you know what, we are going to make room for you in Colorado. You know what, we recognize that we have benefited mightily from the appreciation of real estate that we have enjoyed. But now it's time to figure out how to make room for you by building housing that you can actually afford. And by the way, not just capping rents, but making sure that you can actually buy into the American dream, just as Susan and I did when we moved to Colorado in 1997. That dream seems completely out of reach today for the next generation of Coloradans.
Thank you, Senator. A.G. Weiser.
Senator Bennett, I think, just mentioned the idea that he might want to cap rents, and that's something that it's a philosophical question. Do you try to—
That's the opposite of what I said, Phil, but go ahead.
Can you say not just capping rents? In any event, when you talk about the market, the idea is, do you want to enable the market to work where regulations are about fair competition, or are you trying to replace the market? My background is always about how do you enable the market to work well? How do we enable fair competition? This point that was raised at the incubator. If someone's a bad apple, if someone's acting irresponsibly, how do we hold them accountable for that conduct, not putting burdens on everybody? And the question was, what's a law or regulation that's an example of the wrong type of approach? And Colorado passed an artificial intelligence law that was passed with very little deliberation, without a lot of reflection. And I heard about this after it was passed because my office was the one that was going to have to implement it. And sadly, when people started talking about it, it was clear there were real problems. And then I joined the governor and the person who led the law saying we have to change it. And it's now been quite some time trying to, after the fact, address a problem when we've gotten a lot of criticism as a state for a law that it would have been much better had we been able to slow down, make sure we were really listening and getting it right the first time.
Colorado Building Code mandated an EV requirement on all private-owned businesses, regardless of industry, which has created significant increased costs and liability to small businesses. Have you looked at this cost and liability, and are you willing to have a discussion with small business owners to hear issues and challenges around this? A.G. Weiser.
I am always willing to have a conversation with small business owners, recognizing that one-size-fits-all regulations can be a recipe for unintended consequences. Small businesses face unique hurdles. I mentioned when we did this Colorado Privacy Act, one of the key design principles we had was let's make sure that we're exempting small businesses, giving them room to grow. And when you have regulations, it's crucial to say, what are the costs of compliance? What are the burdens? How will they be experienced, particularly by small and growing businesses? And when you look at how I've led in different areas, the opioid crisis is one I mentioned before, it really starts with listening, with showing up in communities, making sure people are heard. There's a reason that Matt Scher, who's a county commissioner down the road in Eagle County, when Matt decided to endorse me, he said the way he decided it was he called up all his Republican county commissioner friends, and he asked them, who do they want to be their next governor? And Matt said the answer was they wanted me, because they know I've shown up all across Colorado, really committed to listen to county commissioners, to small businesses, to students, and that commitment to listening and then taking action based on what I'm hearing is the type of leadership they want. And so absolutely, I'll bring that leadership to how we engage in important conversations to get public policy advancing our goals, but doing it the right way.
Thank you, A.G. Weiser. Senator Bennett.
I'm happy to look at that, and let me just say that what Phil was saying reminded me that I actually have never used the words just transition because I think it's a backhand to rural Colorado and to Western Colorado. Instead, I have fought for, for example, the communities in Moffat County and far northwest Colorado to get them more than $40 million of economic development resources over the last 5 or 10 years so that they can work to diversify the economy they have, develop the genius they have, figure out how they can link their kids to the 21st century economy that they're inheriting. And that's the work that I will continue to do. I think that we're in a crisis in our state in terms of commercial real estate still, and that some of the regulations that have been passed at the state and local level that have made it more and more and more expensive to comply with the kind of energy requirements that you're talking about, John, are ones that have made it really hard for us to bring back those assets, which are really important to our communities. And it's made it really hard for Colorado to attract new business to our state. Again, this is about real change. This is about real results. And it's the only way we're going to make sure that our state is going to be a comfortable home for our kids and for our grandkids.
The next two questions are on education, and we've received a lot of permutations on this, so we'll try and synthesize this a little bit. Colorado underfunds public education by $3.5 billion a year, according to an independent study commissioned by the legislature. We've never really adequately or fully funded public education in Colorado as a state, and in particular, both at the K-12 level. Mesa County District 51 is one of the lowest funded large school districts in the state. Colorado Mesa University is the lowest funded four-year university in the state. What will you do as governor to try and reverse this trend and adequately fund both K-12 and higher education? Senator Bennett, this question's to you first.
Thanks. So as somebody who actually has been a school superintendent, I have seen for years how our kids and our teachers are fighting, and our communities are fighting with one hand tied behind their back because of the constitutional constraints that were put on our state 40 years ago. It's time for us to have a real debate and a real discussion about how to reform TABOR. And I've said that I would start that discussion in red rural Colorado, not blue urban Colorado, because it's important for us to build a real coalition to actually make changes, not just put things on the ballot and have them fail. We are losing teachers to Utah. We are losing teachers to Wyoming. We are losing teachers to New Mexico. It is embarrassment what we are paying our teachers. And the budget struggles of your school district, John, are really serious. And we're going to have to address it. And I think the best way for us to address it is to be able to say that we're going to get a better set of outcomes out of our K-12 system as we fund it. And we're going to ensure that we're the first state in America where every single kid that graduates has the chance to graduate high school with a living wage, not just the minimum wage, and has the credentialing to drive that economic prosperity, as well as to go on and get higher education. And finally, let me congratulate you for your leadership and the model that you've shown, because I think that you have demonstrated that it is possible to do less with more. It is possible to propel kids forward into our economy with the education that you're providing them there. And I know that has come because you've been willing to chart a different course. And I think that's what we have to do as a state.
Thank you, Senator.
Follow your example, John Marshall. I'm serious about that. I'm serious about that in higher ed and K-12.
From your lips to God's ears. A.G. Weiser.
It's a good pickup from the earlier point I mentioned. What has happened over the last 20 or 30 years in education is a hollowing out. Many people hear the phrase BS factor, which you might think you know what it means, and it kind of is that, but it actually means budget stabilization, and that's where that $3.5 billion underfunding comes from. We systematically provided less funding, which meant higher ratios of students to teachers. It meant less mental health support. It meant less career and technical education. We need all this investment. It will get a great social return. It's important to our future because right now we're effectively eating our own seed corn by not investing in education. We've tried twice in the last 7 years, putting something on the ballot to change TABOR, and the public didn't understand that there was no buy-in, it failed. When I'm governor, what I want to do is what I did when I challenged the City Market Safeway merger. I led 19 town halls across Colorado. I want to do that with civic assemblies, giving people a chance to be heard, creating a new framework for how we change Tabor to make these crucial investments.
Thank you, AG Weiser. Related question. The state is currently moving to create a new state department combining the Department of Higher Education with many of the workforce development programs in other state agencies. What is your vision for this to ensure that we have a skilled workforce specifically around career, technical, and vocational programming? AG Weiser, this question's to you.
I worked on the founding of an organization, I know Jay Seaton's been involved and others from the Western Slope as well, called CareerWise Colorado. And the focus of CareerWise Colorado was to lean in to apprenticeships, to helping students in high school get real experience so they can get a good job. There are programs now like Careers in Construction, helping young people learning hands-on. We need to scale that up big time. We have disinvested in career and technical education. We have an opportunity in Colorado to take a leadership role. Whether the boxes are put in whatever place, I'm open to different ways that can happen, but for me, it's about results. It's about making sure we're building these systems of workforce training where people have access to pathways so they can earn and learn, get different credentials, and be in a position to get good jobs that right now we're not filling. We don't have enough electricians, HVAC workers, plumbers, and these are jobs, they're not going to be affected by AI. They're jobs we need in our economy, and our system of workforce development is currently failing to get the job done. We need to scale up these opportunities, invest in this area, and I'll join the sucking up to John Marshall here. CMU is really doing incredible work on this, is poised to play a critical role for our state's future in this area.
Thank you, AG Weiser. Senator Bennett.
John, let me go back to the K-12 funding issue. Just so everybody understands, today in Colorado, in addition to not paying our teachers adequately, our kids are getting 160 days of school on average compared to the national average, which is 180 days of school. If you are considering locating your business in a place, are you going to do it where there's 180 days of school versus 160 days of school, the lowest in the nation? Are you going to do it in a place where people have to pay out of pocket $1 billion, let's say, to cover that 20 days in childcare expense? So that's a good example of something that we have tolerated because we have been unwilling to actually match our rhetoric with action. And then in terms of the bureaucratic changes, here's what I would say about that, John. It makes no difference unless, in the end, we can much better align the outcomes that we are getting for kids with what the private sector and what our public sector will pay students to actually earn that living wage that I'm talking about. And that is what has created a failure all across America on these issues, on that kind of credentialing that are industrialized countries all over the world in Europe and Asia have been able to do. I think Colorado can be the first state in America to be able to deliver that kind of an education, but we're going to have to much more tightly couple the needs of employers in our state and what our K-12 systems and, frankly, John, our higher ed systems are producing.
Senator. Final question before we move to closing. With specifics, what do you intend to do to fix the state budget deficit? Senator Bennett, this question's to you first.
Thanks. Well, let me say first, John, with specifics, I'm the only candidate in this race who has dealt with serious, fiscal turnarounds. I turned around, as I mentioned earlier, we made it the largest movie theater company in the world. We restructured $3 billion into $400 million. I took the Denver Public Schools, which was failing as a fiscal matter, and put it on a sustainable, not just a sustainable path, but a path where we could finally pay our teachers. And we are going to have to address this in a very meaningful way. I think that We don't know exactly which parts of Tabor are going to stay the same and which need to change. I believe that we should definitely keep, the requirement that voters have the chance to be able to vote on tax increases. I don't think that's going to change, but I think we have to be very open-minded about the constitutional constraints we're dealing with and be able to show the people of Colorado what they're actually getting for their money, because people in Colorado don't want to pay for bad government. And that's an important thing for people to recognize. The final point I want to make is we are facing a healthcare system in Colorado with projected annual increases of 9% for Medicaid for the next 10 years. That's totally unsustainable. And I will finally say, as a citizen of our state, I am so tired of watching Denver lurch 1 year at a time from these budget crises. We need to work with the leadership of the people in that room to have a vision for what the next 10 years are going to look like for Denver from a fiscal point of view. Our business community desperately needs that, but so do our counties, so do our municipalities, so do our school districts.
Thank you, Senator. A.G. Weiser.
How long do I get to answer this?
More than 30 seconds.
More than
Please
30
proceed.
seconds. Okay. Michael's fond of the phrase, I'm the only candidate in this race. So let me make this important point. I'm the only candidate in this race who's worked in state government. I am leading a department of over 700 people. And the way I'm leading that department says something about how I will approach our budget challenges. Every year in state government, they have these engagement surveys asking people in every department, how engaged do you feel in the department and the work you're doing? Every year I've been Attorney General, they have it every other year, we've been top 3 times in a row, each time by more. And what I want to say is when we come to dealing with our state budget challenges, I'm going to make sure that we're getting from all sectors, all parts of our state, how do we make smarter use of our funds to save money? Let me give you an example that comes from the Department of Corrections, because I'm the only candidate who's worked with every state agency and state government. I know them up and down. We're spending a lot of money because when people leave the Department of Corrections, there's a 45% chance they come back within 3 years. The national average for that rate, which is called recidivism, is 37%. If we were only performing average, we wouldn't be talking about building more prisons, we'd be saving money. So I want to make sure that we find opportunities for savings. Specifically, we'll look for good returns on investment, like preventing recidivism. And you can see my track record from having led this department ably and effectively.
Thank you, A.G. Weiser. Candidates, we're going to move into your closing remarks. Predetermined order is Senator Bennett will go first, followed by Attorney General Weiser. You both have 2 minutes, and we will try and nudge you toward that number. Senator Bennett, your closing remarks.
Thanks, John. Well, first of all, thank you again for your leadership. Thanks for having me. It's wonderful to see all of you, even if it's virtual. And let me just say, as a citizen of Colorado, if our state government has solved these challenges, I'm unaware of it. We have very, very significant challenges as a state, especially seen from the vantage point of the next generation of Coloradans. They are worried about losing their jobs in our state. There was a poll just last week that said that only 10% of Colorado think the economy is going to be better for them next year. That is utterly unacceptable. And we have to pull together as the parents and grandparents of that next generation, and we have to include that next generation and say to them, how are we going to grow an economy where Colorado can, instead of losing businesses, is competing with states all over this country to attract businesses to our incredible state with the incredible assets and incredible base that we have. And as we do that, how are we doing it in a way that makes housing affordable, that makes childcare affordable, that ensures that our education system actually is preparing people, our kids, for the 21st century they're inheriting, not the 17th century. Those are the reasons that I am running for governor now. These are difficult challenges. These are not challenges that will solve themselves. And I think we need the experienced leadership. We need somebody that's made very hard decisions. When we think about what we're going to be facing on water and on wildfire, the things that none of us can actually predict sitting here right now, I think Colorado needs the strongest leadership in that chair. And I hope you'll think hard about the choice that we all have, because I think that Colorado can set an example for the rest of the country at a time we desperately need one, to be a place where we actually work in this exercise in self-government in a way that can deliver results. And John, you didn't ask me this question earlier. I think Colorado still in its bones is a purple state. And I think we need to understand that about our state. And as your governor, that's how I'll approach it.
Thank you, Senator. A.G. Weiser.
Less than 2 weeks ago, I was on this stage talking to CMU students about their future. And my reason for running is because I am concerned about my kids and our kids' future. I'm concerned about their mental health. I'm concerned about the lack of an ability for them to learn and develop the skills that they need to be successful. I'm concerned about whether they can build great businesses and be supported here in Colorado. And I'm concerned about their ability to afford to live here. I've been working at our state level. I'm ready to take the reins and lead at a time that is make or break. Just like I mentioned before, that 1986 election, we elected Roy Romer to be our governor in Colorado. Denver had elected Federico Pena, and they had dared us to come together to dream at a time when a lot of people were counting Colorado out. I'm proud to say both Roy Romer and Federico Pena have looked at this race and endorsed me to be Colorado's next governor to take on this crucial moment. We need to come together with real listening, with real problem solving, and the type of innovation that I know is who we are. Yes, we've got some challenges, but we've got a special sauce here in Colorado. It's something I've felt since I moved here. It's part of what we had at the core of Startup Colorado, and I've seen it as we've worked on challenges like the opioid crisis, like water. In Colorado, we care about one another. We ask the question first, how can I help? When we're managing the challenges of water, we do it the way that I've learned from Russ George. Concern about one another and how we build an economy that can work for everybody. This is who we are in Colorado. This is the leadership that we need in this moment. I've shown my commitment to our whole state. I'm ready to keep serving. I'd be honored to have your support. Thank you for your time. Thank you, John. Thank you all very much.
Would you join me in giving them a warm thank you?